Hello and welcome to the Pigskin Podcast, brought to you by Richland Source. I'm Noah Jones, a staff reporter and spot sports writer for The Source. I'm joined today by my editor, Larry Phillips, who is a sports editor and author of Ohio Autumn Legends, and our sports writer, Curt Conrad. Follow us on Twitter throughout the football season at NoJo15, Curt J. Conrad, and Ohio Prep Legends, or search the hashtag RSToday to get the latest on the turf war action throughout the area. We think that we found a great way to bring high school fanatics closer to the game each week. Curt has been covering Ashland and Richland County sports for 22 years. Each week on the Pigskin Podcast, we'll be interviewing an athlete who stands out for feats on or off the field. This week, for our first episode, though, we will be taking you through a preview of each team ahead of the season. The first teams to kick off Thursday, August 24th, will be Shelby at Madison. Curt, you'll be covering that game. You want to just start us off on that subject?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks. Before we get going, it's just exciting to have the opportunity to, cover football in a way that is not traditionally covered by, print media. When we were at newspapers, and all of us have a newspaper background, there was only so much you can do. But, being here, we like to try different things, and I think, to reach a younger audience, which is what we're targeted for, I think this is a great opportunity to do that. Larry has an awful lot of experience covering high school football. Between he and I, there's probably 50 plus years of high school football coverage, which is sad and depressing.
To be very clear, I was going to say that, but I didn't want us to come off being really old.
Oh yeah,
that's okay. We fit the description.
Yeah, we embrace it. We are old timers, and that's okay. And it's and I certainly can't speak for Larry, but just what brings me back year after year is this is football at its purest form. These are high school kids. They're not getting paid, and even when I go cover Ashland University, those guys are getting money to play football over there. Those are partial scholarships, right?
Yeah.
So the kids who play it here do it because they love to play it, and really, it's a lot of fun for me to see guys who excelled at this level, to see them go on and perform, at higher levels, which is really a really neat thing.
We were talking about this, the success of local teams and how far they went last year with Shelby and Lexington going to the regional finals, and that was fun to watch. Especially the Shelby community, because I covered them, I got the chance to see them a little bit more, but that galvanized that community, and that's what happens with high school sports. You see the St. Pete's boys basketball team got to the regional final, and you could just see people that maybe haven't been to a game in 5 or 6 years, or even longer in some cases, but they're on the bus heading to Toledo or wherever.
Yeah, I went up to Lucas. I was covering the Lucas North Arlington.
Yeah,
and that team travels, or the fan base travels
absolutely.
So well.
Yeah, absolutely. That was the joke a few years ago when Lucas made it to the regional championship game. It was last person out of Lucas turn out the lights for it, because they were all there.
Yeah.
And recently I had an opportunity to travel a little bit, and I saw some football in a different state in Hawaii, and I tell you, we take for granted what we have here until you go someplace else and see, that the support is, it's okay, but it certainly isn't what you get here, man.
Sure.
And the level of talent, again, no disrespect to, any other state's football or anything like that, but the level of talent here is second to none. It is really fascinating. And, Mansfield area has always been considered kind of a basketball area, but I think that pendulum has swung in the favor of football here in the recent years. We've had great teams and great players.
Yeah, last year Tyrell Asian is now practicing with the University of Kentucky. He's playing in the SEC. This year, Brennan Armstrong, quarterback at Shelby, is going to Minnesota.
Jornell Mans.
Jornell Mans, thank you. Jornell's going to Minnesota also. So we have had 2 Big Ten players and an SEC player in the last 2 years.
And we have the Ohio State recruit.
Yeah, Cade Stover. Who's going to pick where he wants to go.
Right. Possibly the top underclassman in the state of Ohio.
Right.
Ohio State wants him badly.
Yeah.
If Cade said, "Hey, Nick Saban, I'm interested in touring the campus in Alabama," he'd be up here too.
Mm-hmm.
So you're right. This is as good as it gets.
Yeah, it's hard to consider it a golden era when you're going through it, but this is kind of a golden era for high school football in Richland County.
Cool. Well, would you like to break down the
I will be. I'll be the guy on Thursday night at Ram Field at StarTech Stadium. Shelby and Madison are going to open the season again on a Thursday. It's the second year in a row. It's something that the kids are thrilled to death about doing. Well, in talking to coaches last year, they said everyone's thrilled to death until Friday morning when they got to be sitting in English class after getting beat on all Thursday night. But it's a real exciting time, and I mean that Shelby team. They've had a little bit of adversity, but I mean that's a team that wasn't very far away from the state championship in D4 last year, and they got a lot of pieces back. They'll be without some of their key guys here early in the year. Quarterback Brennan Armstrong, running back Devin Brooks, Shorty Brooks. They will be suspended for 3 games suspended at least for 3 games, I think, for violation of team rules. I'm not exactly sure what that means. But Madison is going to be trying to replace a Tyrell Asian, so there are all sorts of storylines that are going to pop up there on Thursday night.
The thing about that game too is that the whole county can come out and see it, and a lot of them do. Crestview will be there, Lucas will be there, Lexington will be there, just because they're ready for football. Everybody's geared toward it. It's I think it's a great idea to kick off on Thursday night, and then they've got it kind of to themselves, like Monday Night Football used to be when you and I were growing up.
Absolutely.
Back when. So I love the idea of doing it on Thursday night. They don't have any college competition that anybody's paying attention to, so outstanding idea from the Madison and Shelby ADs.
Do you have any idea of who's going to have a stronger season than they did last year? I know Madison struggled a little bit last year, and Shelby went on to the state playoffs.
Yeah. Madison, I think, only won a couple games last year, which is unusual.
I'm seeing that they were 2-3 at home and 3-2 away, according to Max Prep.
No, they were 2-8 overall.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
But that doesn't happen very often in Madison. I mean, Larry, you can certainly speak to that. Yeah. You covered some pretty heady days out there.
Yeah, the early '90s, they were in Division I or the big school division at that time, and were ranked in the top 5 in 1992. And to this day, Nate Whitcomb's still the best football player I've seen in this area. And they had Obie Stillwell before him. They had the Whitfield brothers, and Robbie Whitfield was on that particular team too. So, yeah, Madison had, with Dana Woodring there, they were riding high as the premier program in this area. And so this is kind of an unusual rebuilding mode that they're in right now with Jamie Massey and his team. And it'll be interesting to see how they respond, because without their quarterback and without Asian, they are starting over. Mason Campbell has moved over there from St. Pete's just for the football season. He's still attending St. Pete's, but playing football at Madison. And I haven't seen them, Curt, but he could be the best athlete on that team. I don't know.
Well, I tell you what, whoever the quarterback is, and they haven't decided who that's going to be yet, but he's going to have some very big targets to throw to. He's going to have Kyle Jackson on one side, and Kyle's about 6'7". He's going to have Mason Campbell on the other side, who's 6'4", 6'5", and there's a third guy who's 6'4", 6'5". So whoever it is,
can they get him the ball?
Yeah, if they can get, just throw it up around him and let him go get it, I guess is maybe the best thing they can do. But talking to Jamie Massey, he wants to get. Madison has always been renowned for running the football.
Absolutely.
He wants to get back to that. And they think that they have some guys who might be able to do that.
Well, and then on the other side of it, Shelby, we talked about this, Curt, getting through the first 2 or 3 games, say, if that's what the suspension is going to be crucial to them. If they can get to the postseason, survive those first couple of games without Brennan and Shorty, and get to a point where they're still in a playoff situation, they can go, because they're not going to. Nothing is going to shake them once they get to the postseason. Last year they saw the best the state had to offer and took them right to the wall. So Shelby is the first 3 weeks are absolutely crucial to that program. It'll be very interesting to see how they respond to the situation that they're in.
And I would think that a suspension like that, that your margin for error just shrinks.
Yeah.
You absolutely. If you go 1-2, you're in some dangerous waters in terms of making the playoffs. So you almost got to go 2-1, and you're asking a guy who's not a Big Ten caliber quarterback to lead the charge, which is that's a big ask.
Well, they open with Madison. The following week they go against Lexington and Cade Stover, who we just talked about.
Yeah, that's going to be a tough game.
A lot of unknowns right there. And then I'm not sure who they are.
Week 3 is Willie.
Okay.
Their third game?
Yeah, it's Willie.
So it's not like it's unmanageable,
right.
But you're, like you said, you're asking young kids who haven't been put in that situation before to respond. And how's that going to turn out? I don't know. It's going to be fun to watch.
Right. Well, let's jump ahead to Friday night. I don't know what the schedule is exactly. I know Columbus Northland is going to invade Arlen Field to take on Mansfield Senior, and there certainly won't be a shortage of athletes on the field at Arlen on Friday night.
I know just kind of the talk in the community, and we had a chance to talk with the superintendent at Mansfield Senior, and he was excited about the football team, and their offensive line back almost intact, I think.
Yeah, I was reading your story about it, and my favorite quote from Choki is, they want everyone to know they were babies last year. They were really good. I love that.
Absolutely. He was starting 4 freshmen on the offensive line. You've been around longer than me. That's unheard of. That doesn't happen. Not at senior high.
It's not like they didn't perform either. Brian Benson went berserk last year.
Yeah, 2,000-yard running back behind 4 freshmen.
That's another storyline. How are they sort of a committee, according to your story, then to replace him?
And I tell you, it's I've covered football long enough to know that it's more about who's plowing the road than who's carrying the ball. They'll find a guy who can carry the ball a little bit back there, but if they got guys who are now 10 games into their varsity careers, and they're going to be 10 games better and 10 games stronger. And, I think it's going to, and that notwithstanding, they're going to have one of the best playmakers in the state lining up a wide receiver in Jornell Mann. So
it'll be interesting to see how. I absolutely agree with you. I think Mansfield Senior is going to run the ball effectively. I don't think they're going to have a problem. All due respect to Brian Benson, they're not going to have another Brian Benson back there, but they're going to have a running back. They're going to have a running game that is respectable.
Sure.
I'm curious to see how their passing game evolves, because they do have a Jornell Manns, and he's going to draw instant double coverage in the secondary. So how do they respond to that? So people trying to take away their ace playmaker.
Yeah, and then on the other side they have a guy, Christian Haney, who is he's drawn some looks from D1 schools. He might not be quite as explosive as Jornell, and there's certainly no shame in that. Not many guys are as explosive as Jornell Manns, but he's a real solid receiver. And then Angelo Gross is going to be a sophomore, and he's going to be really good down the road.
The guy getting them the ball?
Sid Caudell's a second-year quarterback, so that's and when he wants to throw to his tight end, he's got his younger brother playing that position, and his younger brother is a Division I prospect as well. So he certainly won't be wanting for weapons, I guess. And defensively, I think if you can pass against Mansfield Senior, you got a guy who can do some things, because they're going to have probably one of the best secondaries in the area, and maybe one of their best secondaries since Jacquard Bishop and Matt Robinson a few years back. And
when Choki himself played.
Back in the mid-90s. So there's a lot to look forward to down at Arlen Field.
It's not just Mansfield Senior either. We're looking at, and since we're covering it, we can bat it around a little bit. But we're looking at Lucas, we're looking at Crestview, we're looking at Mansfield Senior, we're looking at Shelby. All of these teams are. Let's be honest. They're going into the regular season thinking, this is not a 10-game season for us.
Right, absolutely.
Right.
And Ashland is, they are playoff regulars. Clearfork, I saw Clearfork play the other night, and they certainly look the part of a playoff team.
Yeah.
It's real early to say that, and they're going to a new conference.
Well, I was just going to say, I was reading your previous story, which goes up within the next. Actually, it's up. It's been up for 10 minutes. But
I just saw it on the site.
Dave Carroll talks about going back to a schedule that makes sense for them.
Right.
They've been a Division IV team banging their heads against Division II teams that are way bigger than they are year after year, and now they're at a schedule that actually reflects their division. So, Clearfork, when I moved to Mansfield in 1990, Clearfork was a perennial powerhouse then, and that was when they took only 4 teams to the playoffs.
Right.
So now they're back to where they're in a comfort zone actually, and I think it's going to be a dramatic turnaround in the Valley. It's not like they were terrible anyway; they were solid, but now they're going to be playing their level of competition, and I think it's going to show right away after banging heads with Brian Benson and Mansfield Senior. Now they're back to Division IV.
And Dave told me, he said, we were 3-7 last year, and I thought we were a 7-3 team, and 7-3, that puts them right in the hunt for the playoff.
Division
but
IV.
They're 3-7 because they played Division II Worcester and Division III Ashland and Division III Mansfield Senior. And all those big schools. They had to play Lexington team that was a regional championship caliber team last year. So it's that was a big ask for them for a lot of years. And Dave said, and I quoted him saying, he takes his hats off to all those kids who were willing to come out and bang against those guys for all those
13 years. The kids started in kindergarten, went all the way through that school, and that's who they play. So understandable. But we talked about the community supporting Lucas. Lucas is one of the most interesting programs. Curt said it earlier. Turn out the light when they were, and that is absolutely correct.
Yep.
That is a one light town, and buddy, they are passionate about their team, and their athletes are all galvanized, and what's going on down there is really fun because for a long time they struggled, understandably, with their numbers, and so what they're doing still with those numbers right now is really interesting.
When I went down there for their media day or football picture day, whatever people call it, Coach Spittler was excited to tell me that he had his top 2 scorers back, and Jade and
Jeb Grover.
Yeah, Jeb Grover and Jackson Hogger, and both of them combined for rushing over, I think it was something crazy, like maybe 4,000.
And they were replacing Galco?
Yeah, he was a couple of years back, but that's a kid who rushed for.
And so last year at this time we were saying, how is Lucas going to replace Mason Galco? Well, okay, they did.
Right, and Jeb is only a junior, so he's got a whole other year if he stays healthy, which obviously you hope he does. And then on top of that, they told me that they were spending the off season working on their passing game to.
I'm going to have to see that.
Let's not go.
So he told me, he said, we're not going to change the number of times we do it, but we'd like to change the quality.
Yeah.
So because that was one of their sort of things that I realized during their playoff loss, and I can't remember who they played right now, but they got so far behind, and they did a great job running in the second half, but you can only do so much by running 4 yards a carry.
Right.
And so they needed to be able to open up the field, and so I think that if they're able to do that and establish that they can throw, the defense won't necessarily always be expecting to run.
Right.
So,
and a couple of years ago, that Galco team, I think their second round game, I don't even remember who they were playing, but it was Ruben Luna, the quarterback, who threw the ball all over the place. Yeah. So, you don't have to do it every down, but you got to be able to do it. You certainly know, dating back to the Buckeye Central teams in the mid-'90s, where you throw one or 2 passes a game, they both go for 80-yard touchdowns. You're doing the job,
Yeah, that was a fun team to cover. Buckeye Central, Loudonville back in early '90s was a fun team to cover. And this year maybe another fun team only on the other end of Ashland, kind of like Richland, Ashland border. There's Crestview, and I was just reading, I think it was your story, about Crestview. Mm-hmm. The numbers they have out is astounding.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's almost like they got 2/3 of the boys in school
it's more than that.
It's
I was talking to someone that I think they have 83 kids out for football, something like that. And there's 100 and there's 112 boys in the school.
And I don't think the expectation is that they're all going to be on varsity.
Right.
But still, like in the future, that's that's a well that's got a lot of water in it.
Oh boy.
I covered the cross country meet at the Richland County cross country meet, and Crestview's boys cross country team had about 15 kids. And if you take that with the football, there's probably like 12 kids who aren't doing something in the fall.
Yeah.
It's really amazing. Crestview's coach, Dan Major, was the offensive coordinator at Hillsdale for years, and kind of orchestrated a really big turnaround at Hillsdale. And he's evidently got the kids buying in. If you get 80 kids out at a Division VI school, you're doing something right.
Well, it's not just numbers either. Those kids are joining a culture that was a winning culture last year. So it's not like, we're serving pizza every day, so we got kids coming out from. That's not what's going on up there. They're bolstering the numbers with quality culture too. So Crestview could be something to watch this year.
And they certainly have tradition on their side. Dating back to Sean Conway and Rick Brindley before him. They have some, and they cranked out 2,000-yard running backs there for a long, long time.
There was a Barber guy.
Jared Barber. Jared was his name. Hunter B. not so long ago. Ryan Odell, who went on to play at AU. They've had some great running backs over there.
I'll be curious to see how they compete in the firings too, because Norwalk St. Paul is always a traditional power. I don't know what their situation is particularly this year, but for Crestview to climb to that next level, that's the target right there.
Right. Well, I was going to say, I apologize for interrupting you, but they also have experience in returning letterman galore on their side. The one thing that Dan Major kept telling me was that he was excited about the number of starting juniors or starting seniors who started as juniors and sophomores and freshmen, and how that experience is so rare for a varsity team, which is
especially
fairly
a Division
obvious.
6 varsity
Yeah.
team. It's unusual to have that many.
So I think that he's expecting a lot of really good things from his team this year.
One of the teams that we haven't talked about yet that I'm really curious to see how this season unfolds for is Ontario.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily who they have returning, it's the guy on the sidelines. Everywhere Chris Hawkins has been, the turnaround has been dramatic and consistent. Gallion, Willard, Winford, and now he's at Ontario. And I covered. I think last year is his first year. Correct. I was at the first game, and he was looking at things not wins that they lost it. He wasn't looking at the scoreboard so much. I mean, obviously he wants to win, but he was looking at how they approached the game, how they prepared for the game, how hard they played during the game. The weightlifting session the day after the game, that kind of stuff. And that's his modus operandi, and how is now that he's had a full year of his system is fully indoctrinated in Ontario. How much of that is going to translate to wins and losses for that team?
Yeah, and he's one of the best quotes that we cover.
Yeah, it's always fun to cover.
Absolutely, yeah. But when he was at Gallion, he used to tell me all the time, and I loved it. He said we went to a gunfight with a knife, and that's the truth. They were just awful for a long, long time. I mean, again, no disrespect out there, but they struggled and struggled and struggled, and he got there and he turned things around and he did it in a hurry.
Yep.
Like I think that third year or something, they were 10-0, and that was in the Northern Ohio League still.
Right.
And that's a big boy conference as far as I'm concerned. It's unfortunate that it's gone away now, but you're banging heads with the Bellevues and Norwalks, and that was some big time football.
Cool. So we've got a couple other games we can talk about. We're going to have Tim covering Ashland. They're playing Uniontown Green. You want to go over that?
I don't know anything about Uniontown Green, but Ashland is quarterback. It's like a quarterback factory over there in Ashland County. I swear, Scott picks these kids out in his fourth grade and says, that's going to be my quarterback in 8 years.
And he's got one in every class, all the way down. Last year he lost Grant Denbo, who's was an Ashland University recruit. Now I don't know what the owns at AU is recruiting him to play, but he brings in this an underclassman whose name escapes me right now. But this kid comes in and he it's maybe it's a system thing. He comes in and throws for his 2,000 yards or whatever. And they have a wealth of wide receivers, big kids.
The thing that strikes me whenever I cover Ashland is that they play so loose. They're loose, they're free, they're relaxed, they're never shaken either. I've seen them face some pretty significant deficits, and they get hot as a team. They get white hot real fast. And good luck trying to slow it down once it starts, too,
Absolutely.
So they are one of those programs, too, that every year you're going to look at them and go, I'm not sure who they got, but I know we got our hands full.
Absolutely. They suffered probably one of the worst losses I've seen in covering high school football in all those years. Last year, they lost to Wadsworth. I don't know if you remember, it was early in the year. They lost. It was the final play of the game.
Mary,
it was the final play of the game, and they lost. And that could be devastating to a team. And sure enough, they come back, win 6 out of their last 7, beat Lexington in week 10, and win a share of the conference and go to the playoffs. Yeah, it was it's something else what Scott's done over there, and he was successful out here in Ontario before he went to his alma mater.
Yeah, you mentioned their offense, and a lot of times the way they set up, it seems like they run with 4 and 5 receivers the majority of the time, and that gets that's the thing in football now. Everybody wants to get people in space. We want our athletes in space, and Scott's doing that at this level. Where he's getting Ashland's athletes, and some of them are not great athletes either. But if you make one guy miss, then Ashland's offense is going.
Yeah.
And that seems to be what his whole thing is predicated on. And like we said, he's grooming that quarterback to dissect that defense from the time they're playing flag football forward.
Yeah, and just looking at their roster, we talked about Madison's big receivers. Ashland's got Manny Langston, who's 6'6", and I think Cameron Knowlton Boyens is another big kid over there. So they certainly won't be wanting for guys to throw the football to.
Well, Curt, you were telling me staying in Ashland County, you were telling me about Hillsdale, and there's another team that
Yeah, they made the
knocking on the
playoffs.
playoff.
Yeah. And full disclosure, my nephew plays for Hillsdale, and he's a very good football player. And I say that not as his uncle, but as a guy who's seen a lot of football players. Alex Becker. I just say that as a guy who's watched a lot of high school football over the years. And Hillsdale, they gave I think it was Cleveland Heights last year in the playoff opening round of the playoffs. They played them as tough as anyone did until Heights got to the championship game, I think. And they've got a nice thing going on over there. Tom Williams has done an extraordinary job because when I went to high school there, that program was left for dead. I mean, it was awful a long, long time. And Tom got there, I don't know, in the mid-2000s maybe, and he's turned things around, and I couldn't be happier.
I was going to say, the Wayne County League, for years, that was the Smithville dominated league, and it's still a very solid conference. Every year, that's a solid conference.
Yeah, I would say, with the exception of the Midwest Athletic Conference, which is on a whole different plane of existence. But I mean, the Wayne County League is one of the tougher small school conferences in the state, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, you got Crestline, who sent a wide receiver to Wyoming this year, and they've had a bunch of D2, D1 level guys, and the Smithvilles of the world, and Richmond, and I'm not necessarily Richmond. Chippewa was good not too long ago. Waynedale was traditionally pretty good. Dalton, Northwestern. I mean, there's a lot of good football being played in that conference.
Wasn't it? I'm not sure how far back this goes, but you would know this better than me. Didn't they have like the top 4 teams in the conference go to the playoffs, or top 5?
Yeah, I think they have. They've certainly sent 4 in the past, and it's within recent memory.
Right.
And I don't know if they've gotten 5 or not, but yeah, I mean it's sending half your conference to the playoffs.
Exactly.
That's saying something.
I'm just going to say the Falcons are also bringing back a 3-year starter, Trey Williams.
Trey has done a great job back there. He had surgery in the off season. They were concerned that he might not be back, but things are looking good as far as I know.
Good.
He will be back and ready to go. So yeah, I mean they lost some talented guys. The Rogers kid was a very good defensive end. They've got some holes to fill, but I think that they've got the personnel who will be able to do that. Now they play a tough non-conference schedule. I mean, they open with Mapleton. I don't know what Mapleton's got. They play Crestview, I think, in week 2 in Loudonville. And then you get into the Wayne County League. So it's not like they're not taking any weeks off.
Yeah. You've got the schedule
right
there,
on,
my friends.
Who else we got? Who haven't we talked about? I mean, we haven't talked much about Lexington. I mean, that's
Jeez.
How do you not talk about a team that went to a regional final last year?
Yeah. Since I wrote the story, I was just going to say, the very first thing that their head coach Dan Studer told me, I'm sorry, not Dan Studer, but their head coach Taylor Gerhard told me was about their strength and conditioning coach Dan Studer, and he was just telling me that he's really, really lucky. He's doing a lot of good things with their kids in the weight room. They're getting stronger, and he kept talking to me about this team motto about called emptying the bucket, which basically means never leaving a workout without anything left in you. And he says that they're bigger, stronger, and they're bigger and stronger than they have ever been since he took over. And he fully anticipates his team being the most conditioned team on the football field.
I think Dan was the head coach before Taylor, wasn't he?
Yeah, that sounds.
I think so.
I don't know if he was head coach at Lexington.
Yeah, he was, because he took over for B.J. Payne, I think, when B.J. left South Carolina. It was Studer, I think it was Studer, and then when he stepped down, it was Taylor who came in and took his spot. They lost a great senior class.
I was just going to say,
that
last year's senior class was I think they kind of got thrown into the fire as freshmen and stuff.
Yeah, they did.
Out of necessity, is what he said.
And they got better every year, and then last year they were, regional finalists and lost to a great team in the regional finals.
I guess if you're losing a talented senior class and you need to start rebuilding, Cade Stover is a good place to start.
Yeah. Top junior in the state.
I mean, I tell you, and I talked to, again, his name escapes me, the Toledo Central Catholic running back in the playoffs last year.
Chris Warren.
Who's now at the University of Toledo. I'm not sure who it was, but that kid, he's one of the best running backs in state history. He rushed for 7,000 yards or something in his career. He told me after the game, he said, I've never been hit by one guy the way I was hit by number 8, and that's Stover. Yeah, that's probably true. And he's only a sophomore.
Was there?
So, yeah. So, I mean, it's kid can play.
They've talked about him, possibly being a quarterback, and I've never seen him throw a football. I mean, he could throw 60 yards for all I know.
Yeah.
He is a tremendous athlete, super basketball. Oh, man.
Yeah. He's probably the best player on the basketball team too, correct?
Yeah,
I'd say
venture to say something. I'd tell you a funny story. I was covering it was in basketball season. Madison was playing at Lexington, and the University of Kentucky's football recruiting coordinator came up to see the game because Tyrell Asian was playing in the game.
Right.
And I was sitting beside him, and we were talking about Cade Stover. You know, he's like, is that kid as good as everyone says? And I said, yeah, you should take a look at him. And so, sure enough, we were watching the basketball game, and after the basketball game, the recruiting coordinator came up to me and said, we're gonna offer him tonight. And he'd never seen him play football. He just watched him play one basketball game, and that was enough.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So yeah, I mean, Cade is a special athlete, and he's a lot of fun to watch, and a super nice kid.
Yeah, I had the chance to watch him interact last season with Lexington elementary school kids, and he's just a fascinating person. You know, he works on a farm. He gets up like before the sun even breaks, and he's feeding cows, and he's just such a good person. You could just tell by the way he was talking to the kids, and the kids, you know, they're always excited to see these high school athletes because they treat them as professional athletes. But it was a really sweet moment to be able to see how extraordinary his character is as a person. I thoroughly enjoyed that.
You know, Cade plays kind of with a farm toughness.
Yeah.
You know, you can just tell. I mean, it's not. He may live in the weight room for all I know, but it looks more like he lives on the back of the wagon when Dad's driving the tractor and they're baling hay.
Absolutely.
You know, that's the way he looks.
Right.
No, other games of interest, I guess, here are Mapleton's at Hillsdale. We talked a little bit about Hillsdale, don't know a lot about Mapleton. Loudonville is at Northwestern. Loudonville struggled a little bit with a lot of young guys last year.
Right.
Lucas is at East Canton. We talked about Lucas. Plymouth is at Buckeye Central. Plymouth not too far removed from a playoff team, which had never happened there. You know, that was a few years back. So I mean, they are kind of, you know, still putting it back together. And Crestline is at Monroeville, and Crestline, you know, I think they broke a very long losing streak last fall. So that, I mean, that's good to see.
They're getting better every year.
Yeah, I tell you what, because you and I can remember when there were some pretty good Crestline football teams.
Trevor Moyer, who coached at Winford, did a great job there. I'm sorry, Travis. Yeah, I remember when Travis was a linebacker at Crestline, the All-Ohio linebacker. You know, Crestline has a long, proud history in football. And, you know, it dates to the Gottfrieds and Merle Hudson and, you know, on and on and on. That community, the junkyard defense predates any of us.
Right,
you know?
right.
So,
and the Harbaughs have some sort of connection
Yeah,
to Crestline.
they do.
I don't know exactly what that is.
I didn't know that.
yeah, Jim and John's dad. Jack.
Right.
Oh,
I'm not
crazy.
sure. I should know this.
Yeah,
because
if
I've
you coached
read it
there,
for a long
I'm not real sure.
They were in Crestline at some point, and so there is that football mentality in that community, and it's a long and storied tradition. So, you know, there's some pride there, and I think their numbers, their coach is trying to grow their numbers from that small town.
One thing that the Richland Source article claims pretty heavily at the second half of the article is that this program only has 21 players on it, and it's hard to play football, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely.
But one thing that they have now, after Coach Kevin Sipes is on the team for, I think this is his fourth year or third year, right? They have stability now, and they have a singular role model. Before he took over, the article says that he it was a revolving door of coaches.
I mean, there was probably maybe 4 or 5 years in a row where they had a new coach every year.
And so, you know, their records have just gotten better each year, and they were even above 500 for the first time last year. I was at that game, and right, and they finished I think 4-6. I believe so.
I thought they won 3-7, but it was better. Like Curt said, I think whatever they won last year was like more than the previous 4 years combined or something like that.
4-6 right here.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, you know, they are losing Jared Wolf, who is, in my opinion, the most fun player to watch on the team play. He played quarterback, and so he's graduated, and so have a lot of their other big time playmakers. So they're gonna have to find a way to fill that void.
That might not be a team you judge by their record. You know,
Right.
it'd be tough for a team with 21 players to go
Right.
4-6.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, they like we talked about. Chris Hawkins looking for other ways to evaluate his program.
Mhm.
That might be what that situation.
Yeah,
is.
well, I think there's a quote in here in that story as well where he says they were like a play or two away from being 6-4.
Yeah.
Like there was a fumble at the end of one game that they should have held on to. But
Again, just like Lucas, the very small school district,
Maybe,
you know, and just fielding a football team is an achievement in itself.
Yeah.
That small.
Right.
right.
And we get to the playoffs like Lucas does. I mean, that is a testament to what they're,
Yeah.
you know, have been able to do down there. I mean, I wrote a story a couple years ago, and that, you know, that historic playoff run for them. And I think they were the smallest non-private school that made playoffs that year. I mean, with their enrollment, and they were a team playing in the third round of the playoffs.
Yeah.
That's saying something. Well, I think that's everything. You know, I mean, I hope you guys enjoyed it.
Yeah.
You know,
Thanks for tuning in to Pigskin Podcast. We look forward to doing this. I'm looking forward to doing this every week with you
Yeah,
guys.
Kurt's going to bring in some guests and hopefully a few players that want to jump in here and tell us a little bit about life beyond football too. So keep your eye out and your ear out. And,
What are we going to do every Thursday, right?
yeah, that probably is the way to go.
Yeah, so look for us every Thursday. We'll have a new podcast episode available. Thanks for watching, guys.
Thanks.
Or
So long.
listening. Thanks for listening.